Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. The words cut through the air, light yet laced with a venomous edge. Beverly's voice floated in from the kitchen, casual but chilling. Maybe it's time we stop pretending. I froze in the hallway, my fingers clenching the doorframe. I hadn't meant to listen, but there it was, the cruel clarity in her words slicing through the thin walls of the house and through my chest. My heart thudded with a hollow ache, each beat louder than the next. "Mom, please." Michael's voice trembled beneath the weight of the words. It was quiet, strained, but there was tension I could taste in the silence that followed. "We're trying our best. The doctors say there's no reason it shouldn't happen." 2 years, Michael." Her voice sliced again, this time sharper, more accusatory. 2 years of these so-called treatments and nothing. I hate seeing you waste your life waiting for something that clearly isn't meant to be. I backed away slowly, the walls of the house suddenly closing in. My chest tightened, every breath ragged, my body numb. The pill organizer I'd gone to retrieve sat on the kitchen counter, forgotten, as I retreated like a ghost into the guest bedroom. My name is Geneva Wilson, 36 years old, a paralegal at Sandoval and Associates in Albuquerque. For 2 years, I've been a passenger in a journey that wasn't my own. Fertility medication, schedules, injections. Each month, a new disappointment, a new failure. Every negative test felt like the closing of a door, a tiny funeral for a hope that would never materialize. And now, Beverly, my mother-in-law. She moved in last year after selling her house. She said she'd be staying temporarily until she found a new place. But months passed, and there was no sign of her leaving. Instead, she settled in, at the kitchen table, at the bathroom counter, in our marriage. "I'm just trying to help," she'd say, as though that could make it okay. Organizing my medication, reminding me of appointments, asking invasive questions about my cycle. I'd allowed her in, desperate for support. "I just want to prove myself worthy of her son," I had told myself. But in the process, I felt like I was losing myself. Michael and I had always planned to have children, but we delayed, focused on school, careers, convinced that when the time was right, everything would fall into place. But when it didn't, we sought help. The doctors found nothing physically wrong. "Just one of those cases," they said. Unexplained infertility. It would resolve with time, patience, and medication. I sat on the edge of the bed now, feeling the weight of Beverly's words press down on me. Had she been saying these things to Michael all along? Did he secretly agree with her? Was I fooling myself, clinging to hope when everyone around me seemed to have given up? My thoughts spiraled, and then I remembered something strange. Earlier that morning, while I was getting ready for work, I'd noticed something off about the pills. They looked different, slightly larger, with a faintly different sheen. Generic substitution, I had dismissed it, a casual thought. But now the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew quickly. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling as I searched for images of my medication, comparing them to the ones I had taken this morning. They didn't match. The reminder app on my phone told me my prescription was due for a refill 3 weeks ago, but I had no memory of picking it up. Beverly had offered to handle it for me. "I'm happy to help," she'd said, with that smile of hers, that smile that had always seemed so full of love. Love? Or something else? Michael and I met at the courthouse where I worked. I was filing documents. He was covering a case for the local paper. He'd asked for my help finding the clerk's office. I'd given him more than directions. I'd given him my number. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, married. Our ceremony was small, intimate, in his parents' house. Beverly had been the model of support, at first. Elaborate dinners, thoughtful gifts. But under it all, there was something. A pressure. A weight. She'd always talked about Michael's ex-girlfriend, the one who became a doctor. "When will you move beyond being a paralegal?" she'd ask, as if there was a clock ticking above my head, as if I needed to catch up. And when we announced our plans to start a family, her interest intensified. She sent articles on maternal age, on fertility concerns. She reminisced about how she'd conceived Michael without even trying, at 23. She'd show up at our house unannounced, often when Michael and I were in the middle of trying to conceive. But even with the subtle tension, I never saw her as an enemy. I had always thought of her as a mother who loved her son fiercely, perhaps too fiercely. I had hoped that once I became pregnant, she would direct that intensity toward her grandchild. I wanted our relationship to work. So when Beverly sold her house, I suggested she move in with us. Michael hesitated, but I insisted it was a chance to strengthen our bond. I wanted to show her I wasn't just the career-obsessed daughter-in-law. I never imagined her presence would change the dynamic of our home so dramatically. Immediately, she began cooking meals that ignored my dietary preferences. She rearranged furniture without asking. She set routines around her own comfort. And then, she began managing my fertility treatments. It started innocuously enough, offering to pick up prescriptions when she was already out. Setting up a pill organizer in the kitchen so she could remind me to take my medication. But now, as I sat in the guest bedroom, the seeds of doubt planted by Beverly's harsh words began to sprout. Something wasn't right. Something had changed. Something in me had been broken, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer in control of my own body. At first, I'd convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. I told myself that Beverly's involvement in my treatments, though intrusive, was an act of love. It was a sign of acceptance, her way of welcoming me into the family. But there had always been those little, almost imperceptible signs, times when I was certain I had more pills in a bottle, or when the medication felt off. Sometimes the color was just slightly different, or the shape a little altered. I chalked it up to lighting, or my imagination. But there was always something in her expression, those small moments when my period would arrive, that sent a chill down my spine. She seemed satisfied. It was unsettling, but nothing concrete enough to fuel suspicion. Nothing that couldn't be explained away by generic substitutions or my own stressed perception. Then there were the odd coincidences. Every time Beverly would visit her sister for the weekend, I would feel different, more energetic, lighter, as if the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. The familiar hormonal shifts would return when she came back, and with them, the exhaustion. I told myself it was just stress, anxiety from being alone, from the house being empty for a few days. But now, I wasn't so sure. That evening, as I retrieved the pill organizer from the kitchen counter while Beverly was in the bathroom watching her television programs, I took a closer look at the contents. They looked similar to my prescription at first glance. White, round, about the same size. But something was off. When I compared them to the reference images on my phone, the differences were glaring. No manufacturer's imprint. The edges were smoother, the texture different. I dropped one into a glass of water, watching it dissolve much faster than usual. These weren't fertility pills. They looked like nothing more than sugar pills. Rage, disbelief, and a cold fear gripped me. I flushed them down the toilet, my hands shaking. Had Beverly been sabotaging my treatments all this time? For how long? And why? I didn't have answers yet, but I could feel the questions swirl in my mind like a storm as I heard Michael's car pull into the driveway. I composed myself. No confrontation yet. I needed proof, something beyond a single day's pills. I couldn't afford to act out of panic, no matter how intense the burning fury inside me. I needed to be strategic. I needed to understand the full scope of Beverly's interference before I made my move. Dinner was strained that night. Beverly's eyes seemed to watch me constantly, a strange gleam hidden beneath her sympathetic expression. As she inquired about my doctor's appointment, I kept my voice steady, neutral. "I can drive you," she offered, serving Michael a generous portion of roast chicken while giving me a noticeably smaller piece. "You shouldn't have to worry about parking downtown." "That's kind," I said, keeping my tone even. "But I'll manage. My office is just a few blocks away." Beverly smiled, but her eyes didn't match her words. "It must be so stressful going to these appointments month after month with no results," she said. Her voice, sweet with feigned sympathy, twisted the knife deeper. "Have they suggested alternatives yet?" I paused, the question hanging in the air. Alternatives? The word felt like an accusation, like she was trying to force me into a box I didn't fit. "Well," I said carefully, "adoption, or perhaps surrogacy with a younger egg donor." I caught her hand gently, as if to smooth over her concerns. Her concerns. "There are many ways to have a family these days," she said softly to Michael, her voice dripping with something that wasn't kindness. Something darker. Michael, who had been mostly silent, now shifted uncomfortably, pushing his food around. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. The passivity, it hurt. It stung in a way I couldn't quite explain, as though he was agreeing with her, even without saying it out loud. "The doctors are still optimistic," I said, trying to steady my breath. "Sometimes these treatments take time." 2 years is more than time," Beverly shot back, her smile sharp, like a blade hidden beneath a fragile veneer. I felt the walls of my own home closing in around me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Michael snored beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Quietly, I slipped out of bed, moving like a shadow in the dark. In the bathroom, I went through the drawers methodically. Under Beverly's guest toiletries, I found it. My prescription bottle. The real one. The date on the bottle confirmed it had been filled only 3 weeks ago, but the bottle was almost full. I stared at it, frozen in place. She had been intercepting my prescriptions, replacing them with sugar pills, all while pretending to help. All this time, while I had blamed myself for our failure to conceive, Beverly had been the real barrier. I couldn't process the anger, the betrayal. I returned the bottle to its spot and crept back to bed, my mind spinning with implications. For 2 years, I had endured the hormonal roller coaster. I had undergone invasive procedures, faced crushing disappointment. And all along, the solution had been deliberately kept from me by someone I trusted, someone who pretended to love me. I lay awake until dawn, calculating, planning. I wouldn't confront Beverly, not yet. I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to find out if Michael was complicit or just blind. And most importantly, I needed to secure access to my real medication without tipping my hand. The game had changed, and Beverly had no idea that I was no longer playing by her rules. Dr. Patel's eyes grew narrow as she listened to me, her face a mask of concern. "Geneva?" she said softly, her voice now low and grave. "Medication tampering is illegal. It's a form of assault. If your mother-in-law is doing this, you should consider involving the authorities." The suggestion hung in the air, heavy with implications. The thought of going to the police, of bringing this all into the light, was overwhelming. "I need more proof first," I said, the words coming out shaky but determined. "And I need to figure out if my husband knows." Dr. Patel nodded. I'll write a new prescription. Have it sent to a pharmacy where only you can pick it up. Keep this medication secure." She paused, her eyes searching mine. "This is a profound breach of trust. You should also consider consulting with a therapist about how to handle the emotional toll of the situation." Her words echoed in my mind as I left her office, clutching the new prescription in my hand. Vindicated, I thought, but devastated. The truth I had feared was real. My suspicions hadn't been mere paranoia. But now, everything was different. The path forward was unclear. Should I confront Beverly immediately? Tell Michael? Go to the authorities? I filled the prescription at a different pharmacy and stored the medication in my desk drawer at work, a place no one could access. At home, I played the part of the dutiful wife, swallowing the sugar pills Beverly had prepared for me, pretending that nothing had changed. She watched me with that same satisfied smile, unaware that I was taking the real medication in secret. For the next 2 weeks, I continued the charade. At work, I took the real medication, but at home, I swallowed the fake pills with a forced smile. I kept meticulous records, photographs of the fake pills, dates, times, and every subtle reminder Beverly gave me to take them. I even found the real medication tucked away in her things, hidden like a dirty secret. It all went into a secure digital record, one that couldn't be destroyed, one that would serve as proof when the time came. But there was one thing I didn't do. I didn't confide in Michael. His continued silence during Beverly's pointed comments left me uncertain about where his loyalties truly lay. Did he know? Was he complicit? Or was he simply blind to what was happening? 3 weeks later, my uncertainty was shattered when I overheard a heated argument between them. I stood outside the door, heart pounding in my chest, straining to hear their voices. "Mom, this has gone on long enough." Michael's voice was firm, uncharacteristically so. "I spoke with the doctor today. Geneva's has been following the treatment plan perfectly. There's no reason it shouldn't be working." My heart lifted, just for a moment. He was defending me. "Unless the problem isn't the treatment." Beverly's voice was cool, almost calculated. "Have you considered that maybe she doesn't want children? Maybe she's secretly taking birth control, hiding it from you?" "That's ridiculous," Michael protested, but there was something unsteady in his voice. "Is it?" Beverly countered. "She works late twice a week. She's on her phone constantly. For all you know, she could be living a completely different life." "Geneva wouldn't do that," Michael replied, but his tone lacked conviction, and that hurt more than anything. Then I heard Beverly's voice drop to a near whisper. "I found this in her purse yesterday." A cold wave of dread washed over me. I had to stop myself from gasping. A birth control pill packet? Michael's voice cracked with disbelief. "Are you sure? Check the name on the prescription if you don't believe me." Beverly's voice was laced with satisfaction. I felt my blood run cold. My body went numb as I backed away from the door, retreating into the shadows. They were talking about me, about my body, about my life. But worse, Michael seemed ready to believe it. After 2 years of shared struggle, of everything we had gone through together, it took one planted discovery for him to falter. The thought of what Beverly had done, what she had created, hit me like a freight train. She hadn't just been trying to keep me from becoming a mother. She was actively trying to tear apart everything I had worked for, everything I had built with Michael. That night, as I lay in bed beside him, my thoughts raced. I could feel his presence next to me, but the distance between us was vast. He turned to face me, his expression a mix of hurt and anger. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Is there something you want to tell me?" He held up the birth control pill packet, and my heart dropped into my stomach. The label was mine. My name was on it. It looked legitimate, too legitimate, a standard prescription from our pharmacy. My mind screamed. Beverly must have gone to extraordinary lengths to create this forgery. I stared at the packet, frozen. The lie so well crafted, so convincing. Finally, I found my voice. "That's not mine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've never seen it before." "It has your name on it," Michael said, his voice tight with frustration. "Mom found it in your purse, and you expect me to believe you?" I felt my blood boil. "Your mother went through my personal belongings? She planted something in my purse, and you believe her over me?" Michael faltered, but only for a second. His eyes held a mixture of confusion and hurt. I don't know what to believe anymore. And in that moment, the fragile thread that had held our marriage together snapped. I wasn't just fighting Beverly anymore. I was fighting for everything I believed in, everything I had trusted, including Michael. 2 years of treatments, 2 years of waiting, of hoping, of believing that each month would be the one. But nothing had worked. The doctors had said there was no medical reason. They didn't know why it wasn't happening, but the results spoke for themselves. "It's not working, so you think I've been sabotaging our chances?" Michael's voice cracked, disbelief coloring his words. "Why would I do that? Why would I put myself through the appointments, the side effects, the monthly disappointment?" I didn't know how to respond. The irony of it all was suffocating. While I had been uncovering Beverly's betrayal, she had been crafting a narrative of her own, a narrative that painted me as the deceiver. And Michael, the man who had promised to stand by me, who had been my partner in this journey, he was ready to believe the worst. "Michael, look at me," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady, though the weight of it all was crushing me. "I have never taken birth control behind your back. I want a child, our child, more than anything." He studied my face, uncertainty shadowing his features, but there was doubt there too. "Then how do you explain this?" He gestured to the birth control pill packet in his hand. I made a split-second decision. I couldn't tell him about Beverly's medication tampering. Not yet. If I told him, she might destroy the evidence I had carefully gathered. I couldn't risk it. "I can't explain it," I said carefully, choosing my words with precision. "But I swear to you, it's not mine. Someone is trying to come between us." Michael ran his hands through his hair, the frustration evident in the gesture, a familiar motion I had witnessed countless times during our fertility journey. "This is crazy. Why would anyone do that?" "Think about it, Michael," I said, my voice rising with emotion. "Who benefits if we start doubting each other? Who's been living with us, inserting herself into our most private struggles?" His expression hardened. "Don't bring my mother into this. She's been nothing but supportive." "Has she?" I asked, my words sharp. "Has she really? Or has she been undermining me since the day we got married? Making comments about my age, my career? Comparing me to your ex-girlfriends?" Michael shook his head, dismissing my concerns. "She's old-fashioned, that's all. She wants what's best for me, and she doesn't think that's me." I finished softly. "I think we both know that's not true." "You're being paranoid," he muttered, his voice tinged with frustration. "Mom would never—" A knock at the bedroom door interrupted him. Beverly stood there, her expression a picture of concern, a mask so perfect it made my skin crawl. "I couldn't help overhearing," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I'm so sorry this is happening, but perhaps it's for the best that everything's out in the open now." I felt a wave of nausea rise in my chest. This was her performance, her calculated effort to drive the final wedge between Michael and me. "Nothing is out in the open," I retorted, my voice cold. "You planted that pill packet." Beverly's eyes widened, a look of practiced shock on her face. "Why would I do such a thing?" she asked, feigning innocence so perfectly it was almost impressive. "Michael, can you believe what she's accusing me of?" Michael looked between us, clearly torn. His face betrayed a confusion that struck me like a punch. In that moment, I realized the full extent of Beverly's manipulation. She had been working on him for months, maybe even years, planting seeds of doubt about my commitment, my honesty, my worthiness as his wife. "I think we all need some space," Michael said finally, his voice flat. "Geneva, maybe you should stay with a friend for a few days until we figure this out." I felt the floor fall away beneath me. The betrayal was complete. Beverly had succeeded in turning Michael against me, in making me the outsider in my own marriage. As I packed an overnight bag with shaking hands, I understood that everything had changed. This wasn't just about having a baby anymore. This was war. I checked into a hotel that night, my mind racing with plans and contingencies. The next morning, I called in sick to work and went straight to my gynecologist. I requested a full workup, including a blood test to determine whether I had any birth control hormones in my system, doctor. Patel, understanding the urgency of my situation, arranged for expedited results. "Geneva, have you considered that your husband might be involved in this deception?" she asked gently as the nurse drew my blood. I had considered it during the long, sleepless night at the hotel, but I couldn't bring myself to believe that Michael would actively participate in such a scheme. "I think he's being manipulated," I said. "Beverly has always had a powerful influence over him. Even so, his willingness to believe these accusations without evidence is concerning." Dr. Patel nodded, acknowledging the complexity of the situation. "You're right, but Michael's readiness to doubt you, without proof, reveals a fundamental weakness in your relationship." I wasn't ready to give up on us. Not yet. Not until I understood exactly what had been happening in our home. 2 days later, the blood test results came back. No trace of birth control hormones in my system. Armed with this new medical evidence, I knew what I had to do next. It was time to retrieve the real fertility medication I had discovered in Beverly's drawer. If I could present both the blood test results and the hidden pills to Michael, perhaps he would finally see the truth. I returned to our house while Michael was at work. Using my key, I entered quietly, moving swiftly toward the guest bathroom. When I opened the drawer where I had found my medication, my heart dropped. It was empty. A quick search of the bathroom yielded nothing. Panic surged in my chest as I expanded my search, checking Beverly's bedroom. Every drawer, every closet, every hiding place. But there was nothing. Beverly had moved the evidence. And in that moment, I realized how deeply she had entrenched herself in my life. She wasn't just manipulating Michael. She was erasing every trace of her interference, ensuring I would never be able to prove the truth. And now, the game was more dangerous than ever. Nothing. I had checked every drawer, every closet, every hidden space. But there was nothing. As I was about to give up, a slight glimmer of hope caught my eye. Beverly's bedside table drawer was slightly ajar. I approached, my heart pounding, and gently pulled it open. Inside was a journal, its pages filled with Beverly's handwriting, clearly visible. For a moment, I hesitated. I knew I was crossing a line by reading her private thoughts, but what choice did I have? She had crossed far more significant lines with her actions. I had every right to understand what she was doing to my life. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. The entries confirmed my worst suspicions. Beverly had been systematically replacing my medication since shortly after she moved in, convinced that I was wrong for her son. She was determined to prevent me from trapping Michael with a child. More disturbingly, she had begun suggesting to Michael that we consider divorce, positioning herself as the supportive mother who only wanted his happiness. I took photos of the relevant pages with my phone, careful to replace the journal exactly as I had found it. As I was closing the drawer, I heard the front door open. My heart skipped a beat. "Hello? Is someone here?" Beverly's voice called from the entryway. I froze, panic flooding through me. Frantically, I scanned the room for a place to hide. The closet was too obvious, under the bed, too exposed. There was only one option: the bathroom. I slipped inside just as Beverly's footsteps grew closer. Through the crack in the door, I watched her enter, glance around suspiciously, and then head straight for the drawer I had just searched. She opened the journal, examining it carefully, as though she were checking whether it had been disturbed. Apparently satisfied, she locked the journal in the drawer and placed the key on a chain around her neck. Then she retrieved her phone and made a call. "Michael, it's Mom. You'll never believe what I just found in Geneva's things." I could hear the venom in her voice. Her words meant to plant another lie, another seed of doubt in Michael's mind. Printouts of sperm donor profiles. I think she was planning to get pregnant without telling you it wasn't your child. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain she could hear it. Another fabrication, another attempt to destroy Michael's trust in me. But this lie, strangely enough, had given me an unexpected opportunity. Beverly was leaving the house again, heading straight to Michael's office to show him this evidence. As soon as I heard the front door close, I emerged from my hiding place, my mind racing with a new plan. Beverly had just revealed her playbook, and now I knew exactly how to counter it. 3 weeks later, Beverly called a family meeting at our house. Michael had returned home apologetic, confused. The blood test results had forced him to question Beverly's claims. Though he remained uncertain about who to trust, we existed in an uneasy truce, sleeping in separate rooms, trying to navigate the fractured landscape of our marriage. Beverly, sensing her influence waning, had escalated her campaign. She invited Michael's siblings, their spouses, and several family friends to what she described as an intervention for Michael's marriage. I knew exactly what she was planning. The journal entries I had photographed detailed her intent: to publicly announce my barrenness as grounds for Michael to divorce me, positioning herself as the concerned mother who only wanted her son to have the family he deserved. What she didn't know was that I had been taking my actual fertility medication for over a month now, retrieved from my secure workplace and administered properly. And I had just received news that would dismantle her scheme entirely. The living room was tense as family members arrived, casting curious glances between Michael and me. Beverly had orchestrated the seating arrangements to place herself at the center, with Michael beside her, and me slightly apart. "Thank you all for coming," Beverly began gravely, her voice full of feigned concern. "I've asked you here because I'm deeply concerned about Michael and Geneva's situation. After years of trying, it's become clear that Geneva cannot provide the family Michael has always wanted." A murmur of sympathy rippled through the room as Beverly continued, her voice dripping with false compassion. "Some women aren't meant to be mothers, and I believe it's time we acknowledge this difficult truth. Michael deserves a chance at fatherhood before it's too late." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me, waiting for my response. Beverly's expression was triumphant, certain. She had orchestrated my ultimate humiliation, but I wasn't about to let her win. I smiled calmly and reached into my purse, retrieving an envelope. "Oh, right. I almost forgot," I said, placing the envelope on the coffee table. "I have some news to share with everyone." Beverly's face paled. As I opened the envelope and removed the ultrasound image, I passed it to Michael first. His eyes widened, darting between the photo and my face in disbelief. Are you? He stammered. 10 weeks pregnant, I confirmed, my voice steady, despite the emotion swelling in my chest. Dr. Patel confirmed it last week. We're having a baby, Michael. The room erupted in confused congratulations. The tension that had been so thick a moment ago seemed to lift as the ultrasound made its way around the circle. But when it reached Beverly, she snatched it from the person holding it, studying it as if searching for evidence of forgery. "This isn't real," she muttered under her breath, her eyes narrowing with rage. But the damage had already been done. The truth was out, and for the first time, I felt like I was winning. "This is impossible," Beverly hissed, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You can't be pregnant." "Actually, I can," I replied calmly, the weight of the truth finally settling over me. Once I started taking the real medication instead of the sugar pills you'd been substituting, conception happened rather quickly. A shocked silence filled the room. Beverly's face twisted in rage, panic flashing behind her eyes. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice rising. "That's absurd, is it?" I turned to face the gathered family, my voice steady but firm. "Beverly has been replacing my fertility medication with sugar pills for nearly 2 years. She hid my real prescriptions, created false evidence to make Michael doubt me, and deliberately sabotaged our attempts to start a family." I pulled out my phone, displaying the photos of Beverly's journal entries. The room was frozen, every eye on me as I passed the phone to Michael. His expression shifted from confusion to horror as he read his mother's words in her own handwriting. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Is this true?" Beverly stood abruptly, knocking over a glass in her haste. "This is all a fabrication. She's trying to turn you against me, Michael. She's always been jealous of our relationship." Her protests were falling on deaf ears. The evidence was clear, and it was out in the open now. The room was silent as the shock and disbelief rippled through the family. One by one, Michael's siblings and their spouses rose to leave, but not before offering their congratulations to us, now tinged with coldness toward Beverly. As the last guest departed, I stood with my hand resting gently over my stomach, a small yet powerful reminder of the future we were about to build. Beverly, however, remained standing in the center of the room, isolated and defeated, her carefully constructed scheme in ruins. "You should pack your things," Michael said quietly, his voice steady and final. "I think it's time you found your own place to live." I felt a sense of finality wash over me. The future I had longed for, the one that had been kept just out of reach by Beverly's cruelty, was finally within my grasp. 6 months later, our home felt like a place of peace and possibility. Beverly had moved to a senior living community across town. Her attempts to reconcile with Michael continually rebuffed until she agreed to attend therapy. The spare bedroom, which had once been hers, was now transformed into a nursery. Its walls painted a soft sage green, filled with books and toys gifted by friends and family who had rallied around us. After everything that had happened, Michael and I attended counseling together. Rebuilding the trust that Beverly had so carefully dismantled wasn't easy. There were difficult conversations about his willingness to believe the worst in me, about the dynamic between him and his mother, and about the boundaries we needed to establish going forward. But each session strengthened our foundation, preparing us for the family we were about to become. Dr. Patel continued to monitor my pregnancy closely, given our history. During my latest checkup, she reassured me with a smile. "Everything looks perfect," she said. "After everything you've been through, You deserve this happiness, Geneva. I kept my job at the law firm, though I planned to take generous maternity leave when the baby arrived. The experience had inspired me to help create a new policy at work, one that would support employees undergoing fertility treatments, providing flexible scheduling and confidential resources. But the most profound change had been internal. The woman who had once endured Beverly's manipulation and silence, the woman who had blamed herself for failures that were never her fault, had been replaced by someone stronger, more certain. I had discovered my capacity to fight for what mattered most, to gather evidence, to strategize, and to prevail against someone who wished me harm. As I felt our daughter kick beneath my palm, a strong, insistent movement that seemed to announce her readiness for the world, I smiled. Some lessons come at a high price, and Beverly had paid it in full. I had won.